your host, Ryan Richards. Welcome to another episode where we dive into the stories behind how real estate investors grew their portfolio and scaled, and learn about different professions in the industry, how to navigate, how do you buy program options. And today, I had a great conversation with Gabby Demac. She's a realtor at the Jim Black Group, brokered by Real in Central Massachusetts. We dove through her journey from real estate agent to real estate investor, how she went from a house hack into a portfolio of over 5 properties, what she learned throughout the process, what advice she has for you. Talked about current market trends, what she's seeing in the market today as a buyer, as a seller, her forecast for the rest of the year, and a lot of other great topics that you won't want to miss.
Real Estate Lens by Ryan Richards.
So Gabby, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on and learn more about you and your journey, and I know our listeners will have some great things to take from you. So if you don't mind, start a little bit by telling people a little bit about yourself, how you got into real estate, and kind of where you see yourself today.
Yeah, so kind of a windy road to get here, although it's one of those things that looking back, it's like I wouldn't have changed any part of the journey. Born and raised in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, so Central Mass. Grew up with my dad always being in the business. So in a way, I like to joke and I'm like, there was always going to be some chance of me getting into real estate, following my dad's footsteps, whatever. I grew up helping him do all his marketing and everything when I was in middle school and high school. Then I went to school for engineering. I kind of followed that path for a little while. And after 2 jobs in the engineering world, there was just something that kept kind of pulling. And my dad was like, why don't you get licensed, see what happens? So I got licensed. I followed him around for open houses while I was still working full time. And then finally I was like, you know what? I want to see if I can do this. So I made the jump full time and haven't looked back.
It's funny how real estate does that. Everyone has some story of how they got pulled into it
Yeah.
from one way or another.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the engineering part of it, plays a big factor in a lot of just how you look at things and advise clients, because it's has a different mindset than a lot of other careers.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think it's cool because I like the people person aspect of the job that we have now. Obviously being in real estate, you get to meet a lot of people, hear a lot of their stories, but I like being able to take kind of the more analytical approach to it too. So I feel like it's a nice blend of just that kind of numbers mindset, but also understanding the emotional and the personal aspect and just putting those together to kind of bring that to clients.
Yeah, I think it's, especially too for the part that you humbly left out, but you also, the investment piece of Gabby Demac that people don't know about. But I love your real estate story. I think there's a lot of things that I relate with, in terms of how you've grown, your real estate portfolio. And then I think for a lot of people who are thinking about getting into real estate, like there's a lot of, I'm sure, things that you learned throughout the process of just going through it yourself and doing, a lot of the work yourself and managing your properties yourself that people could pull from. So if you don't mind sharing, I'd love to hear more about just your journey in real estate and kind of where you got started from the investing side.
Yeah.
And how things have progressed to where you are today.
Yeah, so obviously got into real estate, just the residential sales side of it. And honestly, I didn't get into it really with the mindset of I'm going to become this big time investor. And even still, I don't know if I'm going to become this big time investor that has hundreds of doors. But the more I got into it and the more I kind of heard people's pain points, even talking to my dad and people who've been in the business for a while, they kept saying like, investing, like, make smart decisions now. You're so young now. And I was like, all right, what is this? So I dove in a little bit deeper. And yeah, I ended up buying my first 2-family duplex in Worcester in 2020. We closed Christmas Eve of 2020. So talk about a wild time to buy. And that kind of solidified just everything I'd been teaching my clients already. And having gone through it at that point was really cool because I'm like, okay, now everything I was guiding people through, I actually have real life experience that I can share with them. And
when you entered that, did you feel like you knew what you were doing?
Not a clue. No. And that's what's crazy. So I got licensed in 2017. So I had been practicing almost full time for 2 years. I'd been in the business, licensed for at least 4 at that point. And yeah, I knew what I was talking about with clients. I felt confident with clients. I had my dad's guidance. And then it was like being on the other end of the transaction. I was like, there's a whole other level to this that I didn't get before. So it was, again, like you said, I can bring that to my clients now, having that experience alone. And then from there, we've just kind of gone wild with it.
Well, that's great because I think with real estate, that's something everyone goes through. Even if you're in the business, like doing mortgages, selling real estate, even being an appraiser, any facet of real estate attorney, you know your job very well, and you know how to help people and advise them. And you also, understand how the real estate market works and all that stuff. But until you go through the exact moment of time or process that your clients do on the purchase side, especially multifamily, there's just so many things you have to learn by doing. And I think that's the beauty of real estate investing. And I think from there, you buy this 2-family in COVID and the world's falling apart, but now it's seeming pretty good. So take us from there and kind of what you learned in that first property and how you kind of kept going. Yeah.
So my boyfriend and I moved into the second floor of that one. We completely renovated the entire place except for the kitchen. The kitchen, for whatever reason, had already been done. So thank the Lord on that front. So we learned a lot, even just about kind of the fixer-upper side of things. We were ripping out floors. We had to do a new shower, new vanity. I learned how to DIY paint tile. We kind of started building our relationships with a lot of contractors and things like that. My boyfriend learned how to add some lolly columns in a basement and all that fun stuff, re-supporting the house, structure of the house, all that. And we honestly at the time were really excited because we had a place of our own. We had someone renting below us that was the mortgage helper. So that was a huge just sigh of relief at a time that was so uncertain, obviously 2020. But we also in the back of our minds were like, did we do this too late? And because obviously beginning of 2020, everything happened. People were like, what's going to happen? And all we saw from March until December when we closed were prices going up and up and up and up. And we had a property in October under contract, and that ended up falling through, which we were heartbroken about. And then we buy this one, and we're like, we definitely overpaid. We went way overpriced. Like, this is never going to work for us. Fast forward 2 years after that, and we're like, oh no. Looking back, we are so glad we started when we did. Yeah. So we ended up in about 2.5 years or so, we had gained enough equity from the work that we did and just from the appreciation of the market, pulled out an equity line of credit on that house, and we used that for the down payment on our 3-family. So then we kind of did the rinse and repeat. We moved into the first floor of the 3-family. We fully rented out the 2-family. And then we had 2 tenants helping us with our mortgage in the 3-family. We kind of fixed up the first floor a little bit, lived there for about a year. And then we actually moved into an apartment for a little while because we decided to just keep the party train rolling, and we found a really cool opportunity to purchase 3 small houses. I call them cottages, right off the lake in Shrewsbury, so right over the bridge from where we are. And that has been our baby, I would say, and headache for the last year. Well,
I love the story every time because I think it's a true testament to the power of real estate in the sense of, when you bought the 2-family, did you have to, I'm assuming financing, did you have to put a lot down? Was it a large down payment requirement, or were you able to kind of keep some cash in your pocket for some of the renovations?
Yeah, so we actually, full transparency, we ended up taking advantage of one of the homebuyer programs in Massachusetts. Great. So because we were going to be owner occupied, and again, you had heard a lot about all of these down payment assistance programs and grants and things like that. And being someone with a commission-based job, I work for myself, and having student loans, I was making enough money to qualify, but there was still that little bit of, okay, I can pull money out and put it as a down payment, or is there a way that I can strategize and kind of leverage other money, that's available to me? So I ended up doing 5% down payment, with a portion of that being through the down payment assistance program, which was really cool. Allowed me to keep extra money in my pocket to put into the house, which again, then added to the equity, the value of it and all that stuff. And then for the second property, again, because we were living in it, took full advantage of the fact that as owner occupied, you typically have a lower down payment. So again, we put 5% down on that one, again, giving us the extra cash on hand to kind of do the work. And
See, it's a true testimony because I talk about it, all the time as far as the assistance programs, and I'm sure a lot of buyers hear it on social media. You can buy a house with little to no money down. And it almost sounds fictitious to some degree. People always say to me on the phone, what's the catch? I'm like, well, it's not really a catch. We talk through, of course, the different details of it, but the great part is the programs are out there, and having someone who knows how to guide you to get there creates great opportunities. And that's where I think some people, they stop before they start learning, in the sense of, well, I don't think I can qualify. So they disqualify themselves first. But going from, the 2-family, you build some equity, pull some out in an equity line of credit, you fund the next purchase. I mean, that's what I love talking about and what, people always aspire to do. So how did that differ? I mean, obviously the equity was able to grow from first property to the second, and now it's been a few years since you've had the second, so I'm sure you have some equity in that place. But you snowballed into the 3 cottages. So how do you see those two playing together? Was there some benefits of already having 2 properties when you're going for the next one, or how did you navigate kind of leveraging to that next step?
Yeah, so the next one is a very unique, and again, looking backwards, I'm grateful because I've done the down payment assistance route, I've done the FHA route, I've now can say that I've done seller financing. So that was how we got these properties. So they're 2 small single family cottages, again, very small, and then we have a 2-family. All of them were bought on one piece of land, and basically the way that this worked is we were kind of getting the itch after a year. We felt like, okay, we have some good momentum going and all that stuff. Let's see what else we can do. Weren't really seeing much on the market. We weren't going to kind of push it, but I did catch wind through a family friend that someone was going to be selling, or they were looking to start the process of selling these properties. They're getting older. They really don't want to just deal with the maintenance, the tenants, all that stuff anymore. So I had reached out to them, I think it was in September of 2023. Mind you, from September of 2023, it took us about 8 months. We closed in April of 2024. So it was a long process. It took a lot of time, but basically what we said to them was, hey, look, we've already done this. We have 5 units under our belt. We have 2 properties, 5 units. We have tenants. We've done renovations to them. We understand what the numbers look like. You know, would you be willing to some type of partnership? In this case, a seller financing. So it took them a while to come around to it. We did a lot of back and forth negotiation. But for us, what was nice is when you go that route in this circumstance, we were able to, again, only put 5% down up front. They trusted us enough. We built a good relationship with them. So we put the 5% down again, and then we were able to negotiate rate and term. So at the time of when we were getting ready to close, interest rates had skyrocketed. So we had negotiated still pretty high. I mean, I say high, it's comparable to where we are now, but about a 6% interest rate is what we negotiated for 18 months. So in these last almost 18 months, we have been renovating like crazy. And the idea is, again, add the value to the homes. We'll refinance come September, October. We'll put up a traditional mortgage on these properties. We'll pay off the sellers, and then we will just be able to rent them out and kind of keep the cash flow coming.
That's, I mean, the textbook real estate. I love the seller finance theme. And when you say seller finance, you know, for those listening, that's referring to the seller essentially acting as the bank, you know, and allowing you to take out a note, which of course is just a loan on the property to purchase, and you pay them back over time, which for a seller can be really advantageous too. You know, deferring capital gains, you know, for a few years, and it works in both ways. So yeah. I think for anyone listening, that's just a testimonial to there's other ways to get things done and preserve capital, because even if you have whatever amount of money, you run out. That's the real estate investors, you know, golden crutch. So I think that's awesome that you found some creative strategies, because typical bank financing would want 25, 30% down, you know, on a type of property like that, and that's a lot of money. So.
And we didn't really at that point have the option to do the 20% down based on what the homes were currently valued at the time that we were pursuing this opportunity. We could have made it work, but then we wouldn't have had the money left over to actually put into the houses. And as we started opening up the can of worms, we realized it was a lot more full than we thought. So we were glad that we ended up, again, negotiating to a point where we could put a little bit down, have that good faith in there, have the seller making money on the interest payments that we were making, and knowing that we had the reserves in our back pocket to actually do the work and do it in a way that we felt comfortable of, hey, we are doing the right renovations to add the value to the house that's going to help us in the long run.
That's such an important piece too, because banks, and especially on the residential side, you know, that 1 to 4 units category, we might not always require reserves, but it's really important to think about, because you don't know, even if you do a home inspection, you walk it with your contractor, there's always things that come up down the line.
Especially when you're dealing with tenants.
Even the best tenants sometimes don't pay. So that's something I don't think a lot of people think about. And on that theme, you know, if I'm listening to this podcast right now, I'm saying she buys a 2-family, preserves a lot of her cash, waits a few years, you know, as she's living there, getting the market to appreciate, pulls some equity out, buys another. Now she's got 5 properties. What advice do you have for someone who's hearing this and they're like, I want to do that? You know, what things did you learn throughout the process that you would have told yourself 3 years ago, and what advice would you have for someone who wants to do it themselves? Yeah,
so what I love about real estate in general is there's 1,000 different ways that you can do it. You know, I know people that are, you know, OPM, other people's money. They're fully leveraging other people's money to do some big scale, you know, buying 15, 30, 40 units at a time. You know, they're really trying to grow their portfolio that way, and that's awesome. What I like about the way that we did it is It's a little bit slower. I think it's a little more feasible for the people that maybe want to just dip their toe and see if it's for them. Everyone will say, oh, I don't want to be a landlord. That's the biggest thing. Why do you do it? Why do you like being a landlord? And I'm like, honestly, I do. All of our tenants so far have been great. We have a couple of new tenants coming in, so I'm excited about that. But a bunch of different ways to do it in terms of how you get started in the investment space in real estate. And the way that we did it was just a way that was comfortable to us. So I would say a couple pieces of advice. You're not going to know unless you just start. And if you're too nervous to actually take that first step and go purchase that 2-family or that 3-family, or maybe even you purchase that single family with an in-law space and you rent that out to friends or something like that. If you're too afraid to take that first step, find a couple people, find 2 or 3 people that have done it and ask them. Because again, even if they all did it in a similar way, they're all going to have different opinions on it. They're all going to have different experiences. They're all going to tell you different pros and cons of it. And at that point, the more you hear, hopefully the more you hear the pros, they outweigh the cons, and then you're like, okay, yeah, this is actually doable. This is actually feasible. This is something I want to try.
Which is super important to make sure that as you think about that if you work with a realtor, you work with even a loan officer, that your team, even especially an attorney, your team has experience doing what you've done, and ideally they've done it themselves.
Yeah.
So you can pull that insight, and then you don't have to learn it yourself the hard way. They'll be able to tell you a lot and guide you even after closing. So.
Yeah, leverage other people, leverage their experiences. If you see someone doing what you want to do, my biggest piece of advice in any aspect, not even just real estate, just ask. Just have that conversation. That's something I've learned through real estate. When I was in engineering, going to switch jobs, like I was going from clinical trials and back-end stuff to sales position. I had no idea what to expect. I found someone that was doing what I thought I wanted to do, so I leveraged, their knowledge, their experience. Same thing in real estate. I can tell you from the house hack side, which is, again, buy a place, live in it, rent out one piece of it, live in it, rent out, renovations, all that stuff. It's like we did it ourselves, and then we saw people who were scaling, so we kind of picked their brain. Hey, we have this one property. What would you suggest? Gave us a few options. We figured out what would work best for us. Next step, okay, we have these 2 properties, we have the equity, what do we do? You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things, you're not gonna know until you start having those conversations. It's pretty wild to see what comes to you when you start putting it out there, what you're looking to do, what your questions are, what your goals are. So
I think that's one of the, looking back, the most surprising and really valuable things that I've learned in real estate is that everyone who's in real estate wants to help people get into it or who are already in it do better and succeed.
Yep.
So I can give an anecdote for my story. I remember when I was in 2021, just kind of ramping up my business, getting my career going, and I'm like, I got to go to a networking event. Where do I go to? So I went to online, I Googled real estate networking event near me.
In my area, yep.
In my area. I remember it too because I was dreading going. I was sitting in my office. I'm like, there's no way I go to this. But I found a real estate investor meetup. And from that one meetup, I've met business partners, referral partners, mentors, contractors, electricians. I mean, you name it. Just from that one event and now recurring events, I've built such strong relationships. And there's people of all types who are there for you. Real estate agents who, maybe you don't work with them directly, but they become friends and you help each other. And it's a really tight-knit community, which I feel like I didn't see from the beginning, but you're not alone.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, like, don't feel like you are on an island. Find people who have done it and talk to them.
Yep.
Especially someone like you, perfect example. Like you've got, all the experience and knowledge to be able to say, of course, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a good thing that people don't realize when they get into real estate or want to. They just feel like they're alone.
Yeah, it is. It's scary. It's oftentimes people's biggest asset, their biggest purchase that they're going to make over the course of their lifetime. But if you can push past the I don't know what I don't know and get into the whole, okay, what can I do now? What's the first step? First step is talking to someone that did it. Okay, cool. Next step is, all right, what do I need to do to financially become ready for it? And then after that, it's getting your foot wet, jumping in, making that first purchase, and then just kind of see, you'd be surprised. Once you make that first purchase, a lot of doors are going to open, whether it's immediately, whether it's relationship-wise, whether it's just long-term. I had clients who, they're not investors by any means, but even just buying their first place, they were worried about, well, everyone else is buying a single-family house. We can only afford a condo. And I said, okay, we'll just start. If right now the best move for you is to buy a condo, buy a condo. If you're going to be happy in a condo for this stage of your life, do it now. I just ended up selling them. They just closed back in February on their first single family home. They were able to leverage a lot of equity in that condo, which is crazy to think. They did value add, just the way the market was the last few years. They took the equity, they used it as their down payment, 20% down on this house, and they absolutely are in love with it. Had they not taken that first step and they were too scared or worried about what everyone else was doing, they wouldn't be in the home that they're in now. Their family's growing, it's perfect for them. So they're a really good example of you just need to start.
I think that's such a great anecdote too for what we were just talking about, especially with like the stepping stone analogy, which I've heard a lot recently. Is if you buy that first house, you can afford the payment, you can afford the living style, then put some improvements into it. Everyone's idea of real estate investing is so different, which is the beauty of it. You can make it your own. So even that condo, they might not have thought, hey, I'm investing in real estate, but by buying when they did, putting some work into it and giving it some time, those are all the sauces that you need to make a good real estate investment. And I think that's what's I like most about it, is it's so different for everyone. But as you were talking originally when you were getting into real estate investing, how would you advise someone to figure out what type of investing they want to do? Because that's a big question. There's so many different avenues, and I think shiny object syndrome is a really big problem. I know I suffer from it with real estate. Every deal looks great. I can Airbnb. I can flip houses, and it's hard to do more than one thing, but at the same time be an expert at one thing that's not your skill set or you don't have the resources for. So how would you help someone figure out what are they built for? What should be their first investment?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough question because my gut wants to say your first investment should just be at a minimum a duplex and then figure it out from there. Because that's kind of what happened for us is, again, we bought the duplex and I was like, I'm going to buy hundreds of units. No, that changed over time. Yeah. But I mean, it's just asking questions. It's what's your long-term goal first and foremost? So what do you want? And I say long-term goal, not specifically just in real estate, but what do you want your lifestyle to look like? If you are looking to invest in real estate, why do you want to invest in real estate? What is the end goal? Is it for generational wealth? Is it to simply just pay for your kids' college? Is it to maybe on a shorter scale, you want to be able to support your parents during retirement? Like, what is the reason that you want to invest? And that honestly may change what type of investing you do. It might change how you do it, how quickly you want to scale. And once you kind of narrow that down, it's going to change it's going to help you focus on who you need to talk to, what type of money you need to have, whether you're going to be using your own money, whether you need to learn how to leverage people's money, go the seller financing route, all that kind of things. Because again, there's the house hack route, a little bit slower, a little bit easier of like smaller bites to chew off. Then there's the bigger scale where you're buying multiple units quicker and all that kind of stuff. Again, typically leveraging other people's money, hard money, seller financing routes. You have the Airbnb routes. That's also investing. Do you like that creative side of things? Do you want to be able to furnish it? Can you fund something like that? Because something like that is a lot more money up front, but you tend to have a quicker and bigger return right out of the gate versus the long-term investment. So I think it's just really getting down to why you want to invest in real estate first off, what your long-term goals are, and what time commitment do you want to have? Time and financial commitment do you want to have to it? Because again, think about it. Airbnb, a lot of automations that you can do, but there's also a lot of turnover, a lot of contacts, a lot of communication, a lot of people that are involved versus a lot of the longer term rentals. For the most part, if you can get a good tenant in there and they're going to hang out for a while, you can kind of set and forget, besides obviously your monthly maintenance and all that stuff.
That's what they call mailbox money, right? Is that exists?
Something like that, yeah. It's never truly passive. That's the other big thing too, is just know that there's so many benefits to real estate investing. It eventually could become passive, meaning you can take your foot off the gas a little bit, you can step a little bit further away. It's never truly a passive form of income, but it definitely has the biggest return on your investment, time and money-wise. So
I think that's a great perspective too, because often people don't think about the time component.
Oh yeah.
And in every type of investing that you just went through, all has so vastly different ideas of time commitment. Flipping is so much different than owning an investment property, but if you have a tenant leave, you might have to fully renovate a unit. So they're all very different. I think that's important to figure out too, because that can help figure out where you want to be. I think that's something that I'm finding anyways, the newer investors, they don't know where to go, in terms of markets, right? Because every market is so different. I think a lot of times I have some people looking in Boston area right now. They want to buy multifamily. They want it to cash flow. that's not going to happen in the Boston city area. So the market, can you define kind of what your market is and what you're seeing for deal activity as far as competition in the multifamily space? Are you seeing some deals happen? Because I feel like that's something that people are missing on, is they're looking for the wrong deals in the wrong areas.
Yeah.
Every market's different. So kind of what area do you find yourself in, and how are you seeing things play out in the market right now?
Yeah, so we have our investments in central Massachusetts. So Worcester, Shrewsbury, a lot of our team has investments kind of in that Worcester, very, very immediate surrounding areas. In terms of just sales in general, I focus mostly on central Massachusetts, although I do kind of touch into Middlesex and Suffolk County, so Boston area, Metro West, and they are vastly different. In terms of Boston, I mean, again, like you said, you got higher priced homes. You have higher prices. You do have higher rents, but even still, if you compare some things, a lot of rents in Worcester are going up just as high. So is it more beneficial for you to move a little bit further outside of that perfect or that high end, or however you want to call it, market, come out to, let's say, Worcester, for example, spend a fraction of the money on something that is having very comparable rents, and therefore you're going to be able to cash flow more. In terms of just what's going on, Boston, I mean, it's still busy. It's Boston. You're in a fantastic, you have coastline, you're East Coast, one of the biggest cities in terms of just accessibility to other parts of the world, other parts of the country, businesses, industries, all that stuff. So Boston's really never going to go anywhere. I think if you are going to invest in that area, unless you have a couple million sitting around in cash and you want to just lay that down for a multifamily, then yes, you're going to cash flow, but you also want to think long term. How long is it going to take you to recoup that $1 million, $2 million that you just put down? Versus in Worcester, I think you have more opportunity to buy something that's going to cash flow a little bit more upfront, but you're also going to have a lot more room for growth. A lot of people are kind of coming out to that Worcester area, Worcester and surrounding. A lot of money is being put into school systems. A lot of money is being put into jobs, and a lot of industries are growing around our area. So again, if you can get into a place that is good as it is right now, but has a lot of promise for future growth and projection, I think that's where you're going to see get the biggest bang for your buck.
That's great. I think I heard someone refer to it as the path of progression. And I think that's a really unique opportunity now. Look, where's the development going towards? Where are people getting pushed to? I'm sure you're seeing that even on the residential single family side.
Oh, yeah.
Just families looking for homes. There's affordability is pushing people to new locations. And I think eventually, looking in the future, we'll see those areas start to, appreciate and provide investment opportunities. And for that family who said, I'm buying that condo.
Yeah.
I'm listening to Gabby, I'm going to buy my first condo. In 5 years, they'll be grateful they did.
Yeah.
And so as far as like the competition for buyers today, in our market, what are you seeing on the news?
Headlines.
Headline news. It's always right. The first sentence is always right. But I think it's interesting that you'll see inventories up a dramatic amount of percentage, which they're statistics. So usually they're based on data.
Yep.
But does it feel like that for buyers? Are they feeling like they're just strolling through, a department store picking out shoes and they can pick whatever ones they want? Or how are you seeing things play out?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. So it's actually funny. We just do every week on Mondays, we run through on our team, we go through the numbers. Monday is market update, Mortgage Monday. So whether it's interest rates we're talking about, stats in our local market. And as of this past week, like you said, year to year comparison, we are up 38% in inventory this time compared to last year. Sounds really great. That's almost half. That's almost double what, we've been seeing. No, because what you're looking at too is even though inventory is increasing, you're also seeing more homes go under contract. You're also seeing more homes go under contract pretty quickly. Average days to getting an offer accepted is about 14 days. Wow. So you have a week, maybe two, to get out there, to find the house, to tour the house, to write up the offer that gets accepted, to beat out all the competition. It's a very quick and competitive process. The biggest pain point and reason for that is even though inventory is up, it is still far below what we would call a balanced market. So if you look at trends over time, if you want to go the numbers route, this is like the engineer side of me. If you look at the data year over year, let's say for the past 20 years, we are still at some of the lowest amount of inventory that we have seen since, I believe it was like 2004 was the last time, or early 2000s was the last time we were even close to this small amount of inventory, this low.
So if I'm listening to this now and I'm like, but Gabby, should I wait? What do I do? If you're telling, inventory is up, that's great, but it's still competitive. what would you say to someone who's like, should I wait? I think a lot of buyers are asking that question, and it's a hard one to answer. So I don't expect you to have the golden response that covers everyone's
Don't quote
scenario.
me on this. You're going to have people calling you. Yeah, Gabby said we shouldn't wait. We got to go.
Gabby said I need to buy today. But what would you say to someone who has the question of, should I wait to buy? Should I wait for rates? What advice do you have to help someone think about that question?
I would say if you are asking yourself that question, but if you are financially and emotionally and physically able to and willing to buy, if that perfect house came along, then you should get going. You should try to buy now. There are people out there where financially it is just not feasible for them, and that's fine. You know, you always hear, and I even found in the earlier years of real estate, like, you got to buy now. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is now. And it's like, yeah, that does apply to a lot of people, but when you really think about it, it doesn't work for everybody. With rates being higher, it is challenging for a lot of people, although we are seeing them start to tick down. So I even had a couple people that have reached out, or I've reached out to and said, hey, you were on the cusp a couple of months ago because of interest rates. Guess what? Have your numbers rerun again. Reach out to Ryan, reach out to your mortgage lender, see if it changes anything. You know, I would say, like, again, just to repeat it, if you are in a position where you can buy, I would highly suggest it. If you are not in a position to buy, still reach out to your team, your realtor, your lender, and figure out what you need to do to get to that position. If it's going to take you 6 months, maybe pay off a little bit of debt. If it's going to take you a year to come up with a savings plan so you have enough money for a down payment and closing costs. But the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to see the benefit. And the reason I say at least come up with that game plan now if you're not actually going to make a move is because as we see rates drop, think about your basic economics class, supply and demand. Rates are going to drop, so people are going to be able to afford more. But inventory is still lower, and there's a lot of buyers out there. More buyers, fewer houses, prices are going to go up. So if you're in a spot right now where you can lock in that lower price potentially and then just hang out for a little while, let prices naturally appreciate as they have year over year for the last, on average, 5 decades, you're going to be in a pretty good spot.
I think you can always get tomorrow's rate, but you can't always get today's price. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. But the way you explained it, I think is so important for, like, someone to understand, because I feel like a lot of times when someone's like, I'm thinking of buying a house, they think of it as if it's an end-all be-all. Like they're setting sail on a ship into the middle of the ocean, and the only way they succeed is if they buy.
Yeah.
Like there are other options. You know, if you were like, I'm going to buy a house, where do I start? Well, the perfect place to start is talk to your team. You know, talk to a realtor, talk to a lender, and come up with a plan. You know, if I had a financial advisor, which I do, he's great, by the way.
He is. I'll attest to that. Yes, he's mine as well.
He is. I have his number if you need me. Just send me a comment. But if talking to a financial advisor, right, you're like, I'm saving for my kids, you know, future education savings. I want to buy a vacation home. You come up with a plan. So it's the same thing with buying a house, where I think sometimes it becomes, I'm going to do this today. Today I'm ready to buy a house. Can I buy a house? But now you don't have time to make changes to your finances. You know, take time to look at your living situation, the location you want to be in, you know, do your homework. And now it's, okay, my lease is up in 2 months. I need to find a place, which happens and can be managed.
Yep, you can do it.
But there's a way to look at it that takes the stress out of it. And I think that's starting with the education up front and starting to plan. And to someone who's in that spot, like, I want to buy soon, when do you think they should ask the question? Is it 6 months? Is it 3 months? Is it a year? Or is it when they have it?
No, again, everyone's situation is going to be different. That's the blessing and the curse about this industry. Is I love, like I said in the beginning of this, is I love everyone's scenarios. I love hearing everyone's stories, understanding what their goals are and everything. The sooner you ask, the sooner you're going to be able to make that plan and either execute it or work towards getting to the point of execution. So I don't think, I've had people come to me and they say, hey, we know we want to do this. They're so excited about it, but they were like, we know we don't have enough money in the bank. And I said, okay. They're like, can we call you in 6 months? I said, no, let's sit down now. Half hour. Again, with my clients, I like to just sit half hour. What are your goals? What are your long-term goals? Okay, how much do you think you need to save? Okay, cool. Let's come up with a plan. And then I'll send them over to a lender, send them to you, and just say, where are they at now? Is it actually as far off as they think? Or could they maybe move in 6 months if they're ready? You know, and again, giving yourself that runway to let it sink in. Again, it's a huge purchase. It's a big financial decision. You want to have it sink in. You want to know that you're ready, and you want to be financially sound and stable in order to do so.
I think sure your clients just appreciate taking that step back and making it about their situation, because that's really what we're in the business of doing, is helping people through the situations, and everyone's is so different. But that first conversation, what are some of the things that you bring up to people that they might not have thought about as far as looking for that next house? What are some of those objections you might hear, or, oh, I didn't think about that?
Yeah. So when it comes to the house itself, I talk about, first off, your must-haves and your want-to-haves. So if you are looking for a house, it can be overwhelming. You can cast a very wide net. If you're in a certain price point, you can probably buy a bunch of different things all over creation. So what do you absolutely need to have in a house in terms of where's the location? Do you need it to be close to a certain job? Do you need it to be close to family? Do you want a certain style of house, certain age of house, all that kind of stuff? And then the wants, are usually the bells and whistles. They're the things that you can change about a house. Your must-haves are typically things like location, which you cannot change. Obviously, you can change the layout of a house, but realistically speaking, you're not going to buy a house and go in and knock all the walls down. So assuming you can't change much about a layout, do you need yard space? Do you want to be in a neighborhood versus a main road? So those are kind of the must-haves that people are like, oh, I didn't think about it in the way of I can't change these things. So they should hold more weight. Versus the nice-to-haves are, does it have central air? No. Okay. If it has checks all your other boxes, can you put central air in? Yes. Okay, maybe it's worth taking a look at. Or cosmetically, are the bathrooms and kitchens and stuff outdated? Are you okay with doing work to a house, or do you want it more turnkey where it's ready to go? So those are kind of more on the house side physically, what are they looking for in terms of that? Other questions are just like, what's your monthly payment? What is a payment? And this is actually a big one that a lot of people will come and tell me, I can afford this much. I can afford a $500,000 house or $450,000 house. And I'm like, okay, cool. Do you know what that monthly payment is? No. Okay. But I went on the online calculator and told me that based on my debt and my income, this is what I can afford. And I say, okay. So when I turn around and I say, okay, for you to buy a $500,000 house, this is the money that you need up front, and this is what your monthly payment's going to be, they're like, oh, that's way too high of a monthly payment. So the question I usually ask is not how much can you afford, it's what is your ideal monthly payment? Because a lot of people will get into a situation where shiny object syndrome. They're like, we're going to buy a house, we're going to be homeowners, it's going to be beautiful, it's going to be great. And then they go to buy their groceries and they're like, wow, we can barely afford bread and eggs. Like, what are we going to do? So you've heard it before, house poor. So I think one of the biggest questions that I will ask is, what is your monthly payment that you're comfortable with? And then let's adjust location based on that. Let's adjust price based on that. And then take the plan and kind of move forward from there.
I'm sure people appreciate that you're looking out for them, because I've had situations where people come to me to get some numbers run for them, and they've been shopping for houses. They haven't even seen the numbers or been told the numbers.
Yes.
Which you can imagine how much of a shock that is on closing day, when you see your mortgage payment. And yeah, it's important to think about, because it's not just the mortgage payment. There's other expenses that I'm sure you talk about, and I think sometimes that gets missed and people do find themselves in that spot. So I'm sure people would appreciate having that perspective from you.
And again, as a first-time buyer especially, whether you're going the investment route or single-family route, you don't know what you don't know. And again, I think that's where it's really important, assembling your team, having a mortgage officer or a lender who actually cares about breaking down the numbers. Like, that's what I've loved. Every client that's worked with you before, they love that you break down the numbers. You make sure that they have an understanding of what these mean, what it's going to look like, kind of even future casting for them. And then I take the educational approach, and I'm like, do you understand what I'm saying? And are you okay with it? And if it's a yes, then great. If not, we take a little bit more time before we jump into something. So I think it really makes a difference.
It takes both those questions too.
Yeah.
Do you understand and are you okay with it are two different questions.
Yes.
And sometimes even, are you listening?
Yeah. Do you hear?
Yeah. Do you understand? And then it's like, okay, explain it back to me. But, but that's really important for people to have that approach on both sides and to guide them. And I think if someone's planning, to purchase throughout this time of year, obviously you said it's competitive. People are having to make quick decisions, so it's all the more important to have the education done way beforehand, because you can feel confident in your decision. I think that's something that people miss out on. But to get back to the point about the market today, and I'm not going to hold you to predictions, but I do have to ask, what do you think the rest of this year will look like for real estate from a general perspective? Not necessarily in percentage increases, or what do you feel like things will play out as? Is it still going to be competitive for the rest of the year? Do you see opportunities coming, or is there something you're watching? I know with mortgage rates, we're watching inflation, what's happening with inflation in the Fed. But from the market side, what do you see this year going like for, one, a buyer and then 2 as a seller. Is it a good time? Should we wait?
Yeah, you're asking me that. It's an election year too, guys. So
I know.
anything goes.
Wild card.
Yeah, I mean, again, statistically speaking, election year, you usually see rates drop right before and then prices skyrocket after. But on just a more general sense, a lot of what I'm seeing both on the buy and the sell side, and it's actually been good because I've had a lot of good conversations with my sellers, it's educating them too. A lot of sellers right now still think, hey, I can slap a price on my house and it's going to sell. And while it could happen, we're seeing a lot of buyers become more selective. So although, again, inventory is low and things are still moving quickly, buyers are a lot more discerning about what they're spending and how much, let's say, over asking they're going to be going for, or what condition the home is in and things like that. So overall, I do think prices are still going to creep. They're not going to take leaps and bounds like they have been. Although in some markets, there's a specific neighborhood in Worcester right now that just had 4 new listings come on, all around the same price point. And I have no doubt in my mind they're all going to go for over asking and they're all going to be gone by the end of the weekend. Again, so it's just really knowing the market that you're in. But more generally speaking, kind of the central Mass area, prices are still going to creep up. I think buyers are going to still need to know how to put in a strong offer. But I don't think in a lot of cases they're going to have to go as high over asking. They're not going to be as competitive. We're already starting to see still multiple offer situations, but instead of 10, 15, 20 offers, we're seeing 3 or 4, maybe 5 offers. So buyers, I would say, definitely stay in it if you're in it right now. Don't waver. Don't think it's impossible. It's never going to happen. Just stick to what you're comfortable with and know that the right house is going to come along. And then on the sell side, biggest advice for sellers out there, if they're listening for any reason, don't overprice your house, because those are the ones that we're actually seeing sit and sell for less than what they could had they originally priced it. So we're seeing a lot of price adjustments more than usual, or more than we have in recent years, which is just showing the shift in the market, which again is a good thing. I think we're still going to be competitive. Sellers are going to still have a little bit of an advantage for a while, but we're getting there. Baby steps, little by little, to kind of that equilibrium spot.
I think that's a great, synopsis too. And I do actually, I follow the same belief. I think that we're going to continue to see the market, for the most part, stay competitive, and might depend where you are. Even within local markets, some streets even sometimes have, more desirable features than others. So it's always surprising to me how micro it can get. But I do think that'll be the general theme. And what I find funny too is something you said, but I find it to be really true, is that the right house will come up and you'll be grateful that you have it. Yeah. Because I've seen, I'm sure you have too, but the end result of someone looking for a house and waiting, I've had people who I'm sure you have backed out of a few different contracts. And every time they're like, it just, whatever reason, it's not the one. Yeah. And every time they close, when they find that house, they always say, I'm so glad this happened. Yep. So I think there's a lot of merit in that too, where people get caught up in the process and should I just buy this house? It's like, well, if you don't like the house, then wait. The market's not going to fall down tomorrow. Yeah. I don't expect. I mean, don't quote me on it. I think there's a lot of good opportunities still to come, and for people who are patient. So. Yeah,
it's a cliche for a reason that what's meant to be will be, and same as you. I have not had. That's a lie. In my years of doing it, I have had one client turn around and say, "Ooh, I kind of wish I didn't buy this house." Just one, and there were other circumstances that played into it. Every other client, no matter their journey, no matter if they were one of those people that waited 2 years, one of those people that submitted 15 offers, maybe they got their first offer accepted, they have, to this day, have continued to just say, hey, I'm so glad we did this when, or hey, we're so happy to be here, or that first purchase was the best purchase we ever made. And it does always work out. It may not feel like it in the moment, and I get that, and I've been there, and I feel for anyone that's in that situation, but if they can just hang on.
Yeah. It's true, though. It's true. And I really do. That's, I don't know if mantra is the right word, but it is something that I hold true. I just think it helps, too, to make things flow a little easier, too. But it does happen. I've seen it almost every time. So. Yep. But I know we've talked about how you expect the market to play out this year. We've talked about looking back, how you've seen the market move over the past few years just with your own journey. Mm-hmm. So I have to ask, what is next for Gabby Demac throughout the rest of the year? Are you positioning yourself differently according to just the market or according to the real estate you have? What's next for you for the rest of this year?
Well, I know we're already second half, huh? We're in it too. So second half of the year, I've just been loving what I'm doing. So I have a handful of buyer clients that are still looking, and it's just keeping in touch with them, making sure that we're doing everything we can to get them a home regardless of what's going on. I am starting to work with a lot more sellers now too, so a little bit more balance. I have been extremely buyer heavy over the years, although I do pepper in a couple of listings and sellers every so often, but it's just education. So, home buying classes, home selling classes, just getting people to understand what's going on in that front and have them feel confident regardless of what their move is going to be, whether they decide to stay put, whether they buy, sell, whatever. Education has been and always will be a big component of my business. And second half of this year, it's just going to keep sharing that with people, making sure that they know what to expect, kind of best worst case scenario, and feel comfortable making those next moves. And then in terms of investment in our personal portfolio side of things, believe it or not, we're pumping the brakes a little bit for this year. We have one more of those cottages that we're renovating. Our final tenant has moved on from us, if you will. And so we're going to finish in about a month and a half or so. We'll finish her unit up and then rent that out. And then just kind of hang tight. We have some pretty good cash flow coming in from some of our units, so we'll just build back up the reserves and be ready for opportunities to come, because you had mentioned that before. And I do think that from an investment side of things, if you can keep your reserves on lock and keep building them and just keep a pulse on what's happening, there's going to be some really cool opportunities, I think, in the future. You just need to be prepared for them. So spend the time now, like I am, again, the next 6 months preparing, and then just kind of waiting at the ready to make a move on something.
That's a great perspective too, because I always say, for me, it resonates with equity lines of credit. Mm-hmm. Every time I have someone call me for an equity line of credit, they needed it yesterday. So, get the equity line of credit in place when you don't need it. Prepare yourself with reserves. Try to stack away that extra cash, and maybe don't take out of the real estate account to go on that vacation or whatever the case, because I do think there will be some opportunities coming, throughout this year. I don't know exactly what, but we're already starting to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen a lot of, especially in the commercial multifamily sector, properties trading, just all sorts of different reasons, older landlords.
I was going to say, a lot of generational stuff, I think. We're kind of in that sweet spot too. I think our age, within this kind of age block, we're going to be seeing just with generationally some people starting to phase out. I think that's going to be a really cool spot for us to jump into, like you said, on the commercial multifamily route and that whole thing. So
I do too. I think it's poised for some good action for this year. So I'm definitely excited for a lot of the opportunities to come. I think we'll see not only commercial multifamily, but just all throughout. There's always opportunity, and I think the only time you don't find them is when you're not looking. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard the red car theory. Yep. Which I always love, because I think it's so true. And if you're not looking for it, you'll miss the opportunities that are in front of you. So I'm definitely getting poised and ready for hopefully some of those to come. And
on the flip side of that too, I listened to a podcast earlier today, Alex Hormozy, as I mentioned to you, and he was talking about just staying focused. And one of the things that he said too is just about getting prepared and gearing up for the opportunities to come is once in a lifetime opportunities oftentimes happen twice a year. So even if that first opportunity sounds really enticing, make sure, yes, you're looking for it, so you know what's out there. Make sure that really is the right opportunity for you. And if you have to say no, or if you should say no, you're likely saying no because you're making room for that once in a lifetime opportunity that's coming up next. That's going to bring you an even greater return or greater success than the first one.
I think I saw that. Yeah. Or listened to that same clip from him. And he's great. And I think it's a perfect segue as we wrap things up here. But I did want to ask, I think oftentimes in real estate especially, but real estate investing as an agent, there's a lot of resources out there. So I wanted to ask as we wrap things up today, what would be one book or podcast recommendation that you have for someone that's had the most impact on you?
Oh boy, you could go a ton of different directions with this, and there's so many things out there, but it's not even real estate specific. The first book that I read in the mindset, personal development space that I think kicked off this whole journey was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. It is a tried and true. It's a short, easy read too, so if you don't like to have these big multiple hundreds of pages books, or if you need a quick read in the car, The Compound Effect. It just talks about how everything you do every single day, whether good or bad, it's going to completely change the trajectory. So just make sure that even if you feel like you're not taking leaps and bounds in life, if you can do tiny little steps, one thing every single day to get you closer to where you want to be, you'll get there.
That's a great book. I love that one. I think it breaks it down to the micro, where a lot of things you do every day you don't realize. Like, so Alex Ramosi, if you're staying focused on those things, I think you can really change the trajectory. So great recommendation. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Gabby, for coming on today. Had a pleasure, and hopefully our listeners take a lot from this, because we talked about a lot of good things. So I will put Gabby's contact information into the description. So if you want to reach out to her, looking to buy a house, looking to sell a house, have questions about multifamily, or just want to connect, put it all in there. But Gabby, if someone's looking to learn more about you online, where could they find some of that information?
Online, I mean, again, you can text or email me. I'm always happy to just have a conversation. But if you want to kind of see all sides of Gabby, Instagram is usually where I hang out, or Facebook, but both of them are at gabbydemac.re. So come hang out, come say hi. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Gabby.